This week, we're going to find out everything that we need to know about the Samsung Galaxy S21 lineup. The Samsung is going to have their Unpacked event at 7 a.m. Pacific time on the 14th of the month, so I think that's Thursday. But that doesn't mean that we don't already know just probably about everything that we need to know about the Samsung Galaxy S21 lineup to have some questions. Let's say we'll have some questions about whether or not this lineup is going to be successful to Samsung, which is going to be important, I think, to Samsung, especially in a year where the S20 lineup didn't really fly off the shelves due to its pricing and the timing and that kind of thing. So the question here is, will the Samsung Galaxy S21 be a disaster, or will we see some success? Well, first, let's go ahead and look over what we've got going on in terms of what we think we know about the Samsung Galaxy S21. First off, we've got three different sizes. Again, we got S21, S21 Plus, S21 Ultra, and the screen sizes are going to be 6.2, 6.7, and 6.8. They're all going to run the Snapdragon 888 processor and have, 5G and all that kind of stuff. Battery, I think we're going to see 4,000 milliamp hours on the smaller one, 5,000 on the Ultra, and maybe about 4,500 with the Plus. Now, Samsung has this way of taking pot shots at other manufacturers, usually Apple or somebody, usually Apple, for something that Apple has decided to do, like take away the headphone jack or, any number of things, and then turning around and doing it themselves. This year, it looks like Samsung is likely not going to include a charger in the box with these new S21 phones after making fun of Apple for doing the same thing. It's bad no matter how you look at it. It was bad when Apple did it. It's worse when Samsung does it, because Samsung looks hypocritical by saying, oh, you can't look at what we still got a charger, and then not having a charger. I've heard price quotes anywhere from like the same prices we had last year, which were like $1,000, $1,250, and $1,450, I think it was, all the way down to $850 for the S21, the Plus at $1,050, and the Ultra at $1,250. And there's really no way of knowing where we're going to fall. Samsung would be a lot better off if they went with that lower pricing number, because with the launch of the S20 being sort of coincident with the launch of the pandemic this past year, the prices for the S20 line were just kind of way out of the realm of possibility, sense, whatever you want to say. They were crazy. And this coming in a year after they had the S10e, that was a $750, I think it was, and sort of going up from there. Yes, the Ultra was pricey, but they had some phones in there that were within the reach of mere mortals. Last year they didn't. This year, I think if they don't have prices that are more within the range of what people can afford, they are not going to sell any phones. Samsung always makes really solid phones. I've always liked Samsung phones. I've been more of a Note person in the past myself. The Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is my favorite phone of last year. So I don't want people out there thinking that this is just me ragging on Samsung. But when companies start to make mistakes, I feel like it's part of my job to talk about those mistakes. And so not including the charger is a mistake. Having prices that are way outside the realm of possibility for most people is a mistake. This year, we hear that at least the S21 is going to have a plastic back, while the other two will have the Gorilla Glass Victus that the S20 Ultra has. That's a good and a bad thing. If it's a plastic back like the Glastic or whatever it is that they call it or don't call it, similar to what the Note 20 had last year, then I think it's going to be a good thing. But there may be the perception among most people that buying a phone with a plastic back for $800, $900, maybe $1,000 is just not cool. The Note 20 was a great phone, except for the fact that it cost $1,000. And in that sense, nobody should have bought it. I mean, you could probably get it for half that now, so go ahead and buy it. But the Note 20 was a great phone that was so poorly priced that, yeah. But it goes deeper than that. In the past, there's been this sort of arms race when it comes to screen technologies, and Samsung has always been one of the best in that realm. But this year, with the S21 and the S21 Plus, we hear that those two phones are going to have 1080p screens. Now, they're still going to be 120 hertz screens, which is important to a lot of people, but 1080p. Now, one of my favorite phones from last year was the LG V60, which had all the bells and whistles that you could possibly want, but LG did cut some corners. They didn't do the 120 hertz. They had a 1080p screen. And I have had so many people in the comments of my LG V60 videos telling me that you can't even consider it a phone if that with 1080p. So how are the Samsung faithful going to respond to Samsung's flagship phones having 1080p screens? Now, the Ultra is going to have Quad HD, 120 hertz, adaptable refresh rates. The other phones won't have that. Maybe that's a good thing, because if we're going to have 120 hertz on the 21 and the 21 Plus, then having a 1080p screen for that 120 hertz refresh rate might be good. Now, we get Quad HD with an adaptable refresh rate. That's going to be good as well, because 120 hertz is very challenging on the battery. So lower resolution or adaptable refresh rate is probably optimum for those phones. In fact, the Samsung phones of before, while they did have the Quad HD, the 120 hertz refresh rate was only available when set to 1080p. But still, on paper, as it looks, having flagship phones that have 1080p refresh rates is a bad look. Having no charger in the box is a bad look. Not to mention, Samsung is kind of becoming its own worst competition. Last year, we saw the S20 FE, which came in at $700, and it was better spec'd than the S20. It was more on par with the S20 Plus, and it was cheaper by $300 than the S20 was at launch. And that is also a bad look. So will people look at these phones coming out at the end of this week and say, well, okay, that looks good, but the S20 FE was a great looking phone. It came out later. Maybe we'll wait for that. What I think we're seeing here is the fact that it's really hard to define what is a flagship phone for Samsung these days. It used to be pretty obvious. It was the best made. It had all the bells and whistles, etc., etc., etc. But now all the bells and whistles and stuff like that are being saved for the Ultra. The Ultra is going to have S Pen support. The Ultra has the Quad HD screen. The Ultra has 12 gigabytes of RAM instead of 8 on the other two phones. And so given the competition that Samsung is putting on itself with the FE and some of its next tier down phones in comparison with these S21s, are the S21s, other than the Ultra, even worth considering as flagships? This is going to be a critical year for Samsung. Now, we see that we're getting the S21 phones a full month earlier than we've gotten them in the past. This year, it seems like Samsung is going to be pushing the foldable phones more than they have in the past. I've heard that there's going to be the Fold 3 plus a Fold FE or something of that sort, as well as the Flip. But I'm not sure that the foldable phones are 100% ready for prime time. If they're anywhere above $1,500, then it's going to be a hard sell for the average consumer. So that leaves them in the flagship department of Samsung's lineup with just these S21 phones as options, and maybe an FE later on in the year. And seeing as how the FE was a better spec phone than the S20 last year, it's really hard to make a justification for going out right away at the end of January in 2021 and purchasing one of these S21 phones. The S21 line is shaping up for me to be something that's less than inspiring. The Ultra line is going to be all the things that it needs to be. It's going to have all the right specs. It's going to have all the right features. It's going to have all that stuff. But when it comes to the S21, I really wonder if either of them are going to be attractive to the average consumer. Price is a big factor here, but no charger in the box and 1080p, all the things that we've already talked about, going to make it a difficult decision for a lot of folks whether or not they buy this or they wait to see what else is coming in the rest of the year. And if people don't buy the Samsung S21 phones when they release here in the next couple of weeks, then Samsung is going to have a real problem. If they don't sell these phones, and these are supposed to be their bread and butter flagship phones, if they don't sell these phones, there's going to be some things to talk about there in Samsung Mobile HQ. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think the S21 line is going to be satisfactory? Do you think Samsung is making a mistake here by taking some things out of the box and chopping some specs and that kind of thing? It's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year coming off of 2020 where everything bad that could happen did happen. Samsung needs to be, I would imagine, looking to bolster sales and profits. I don't know if this phone line is going to do it for them. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. If you want to come back again for more Samsung, Apple, smartphone, blah, blah, blah coverage, then hit that like and subscribe button and bell notify yourself so you know when every video is coming out. Make sure you hit all notifications because otherwise YouTube will only send you some for some reason. Once again, my name is Jason. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts. Until the next time, I'm out.